Hey guys, my name is Elson Joy and welcome back to my YouTube channel. In this video, I'm going to be walking you through a framework that I like to call the one-man startup framework. In this framework, you will learn how you can implement the same thought process that a startup has into your personal life as well. Let's get started. Startups. The word startup refers to a newly established business. But what separates a startup from a traditional mom and pop store is that a startup shows exponential growth. Exponential growth. Isn't that the same thing that you and I want from our lives as well? So this got me thinking, if I wanted to have exponential growth in my life, why don't I start thinking the same way a startup does? You see, a startup is like one big organism. It has different parts in it, but they all come together under this one brand, which you call as a startup. But there's one big difference between a startup and an individual like you or I. And that's the fact that startups or companies are run by a group of people. With so many different people responsible for different parts of a startup, the chances of success is very high. But how can you achieve the same exponential growth if you're working alone? And the answer is the one-man startup framework. Hear me out. You see, every startup has 5 different departments. In the early days, it could be that one person's handling multiple departments. But at least on paper, you want to have these boundaries. Now, the reason you want to have these boundaries is for 2 things. Number 1 is focus, and number 2 is accountability. I've had the good fortune of working in different functions of an early stage startup. This has not only accelerated my professional growth, but it has also given me key takeaways that I have now incorporated into my personal life. As we mentioned earlier, there are at least 5 different departments in any early stage startup. And the same way, I want you to incorporate 5 different departments or compartments into your life as well. The first one is marketing. Now this one's quite obvious. In today's day and age, if you aren't creating content, if you don't have an online presence, or you don't have a personal brand, you very likely don't exist in the eyes of most of us. Now you might think that you have an argument out there. You might say, hey Elson, that's not my thing. I don't want to do that game. I don't want to showcase my work. I want to just do really good work and let my actions do the talking. But today, since it's become extremely easy for people to create content and put yourself out there, not only is the competition extreme, so is the noise. This also means that the public gets to see a lot of people that put in the same amount of work like you. There are other people who are also talented. And with all this noise and competition, your signaling is not going to stand out. It's okay to showcase your work. In fact, it's important for you to blow your horn and showcase your work. I'd go as far as saying sometimes it's even important to brag about your work. You see, flexing is in the eye of the beholder. And it's completely okay if you haven't got yourself figured out. Document your journey and do it in public. Let the people see how you're growing. And that's exactly how our startup grew as well. We grew in public. We documented our journey. We grew in front of our community. And I completely encourage you to do the same thing. Have a marketing department in your life that focuses, that prioritizes the importance of sitting and creating content just like this. Department number 2. Now, this one's one of my favorite. Sales. You need to have a dedicated system in place that does sales for you. When I say sales, I don't necessarily refer to that sleazy salesman who comes knocking onto your door and tries to sell you some snake oil. What I mean is having a dedicated system in place for your networking. The best way to identify a good salesman is to go through his address book. You see, negotiating is only one part of sales. The other part is networking. Now, networking shouldn't be approached as just meeting someone and then forgetting completely about it. Networking also needs to have a system in place. The same way, now in your life, you too need a dedicated department that does organized sales. Have a CRM in place. Make networking intentional. You want to actively connect with like-minded people, network with them, and grow your relations. Like I mentioned, a good salesman has a good network. The next department that you should have in your lives is the finance department. You need a finance department in your life. Start thinking about investing, start thinking about budgeting, start thinking about accounts, assets, liabilities. What are your recurring expenses? What you give or get from buying a 500 rupee pizza is completely different from what you give and get when purchasing a 500 rupee online course. You want the CFO in your life to identify these differences and allocate your resources accordingly. Your finance department should not only focus on money as an investment, but also time. Learn how to budget your time, learn how to invest your time, learn how to allocate your time into things that give you the maximum return of investment. I've seen so many people that are excellent at networking. They're excellent at showcasing their work. They're excellent at making money, but they don't know how to keep that money or multiply that money. If you have a dedicated finance department in your life, now you will know that you need to have that dedicated department in your life that can see how you can maximize and compound the kind of work that you do. So have a dedicated finance department in your life. Number 4 is product. In the startup that is you are also the product. Make sure that you dedicate enough time into learning new things. Now, just like any other product out there, you want to constantly keep updating new features. You want to keep removing features that no longer serve a purpose. You want to remove certain bugs from your life. You want to make sure that you're dedicating enough time into learning about what's the best things out there so that you can grow faster. An excellent way for you to identify which career path to take is the same way a startup identifies which market to go after. Just like you have a VC that analyzes where there is maximum potential for growth, you too want to analyze where you and your career has maximum potential for growth. And finally, you have the operations department. Now, what do I mean by an operations department? In general, operations in a startup refers to a coalition of all of the inefficiencies that exist within it. Whenever a certain activity or task is too much to be handled by any of these other 4 departments, that is when you introduce something called operations. The success of an operations department comes from its eventual non-existence. A really good operations executive is one that works extremely hard to ensure that he no longer has a job. You want to start identifying in which of these parts are you lacking. Where are the inefficiencies? How can you improve these inefficiencies so that you can perform in full force? And there you go. All of what we discussed might sound quite simple, but the key thing that I want you to take away from the one-man startup framework is the idea of compartmentalization. Having individual departments focus on different aspects of your life ensures that you are putting in the dedicated focus and you're also measuring the accountability for all of these different functions. Which means if you find that a particular function in your life, say your finances or your health or your career is not working out, now you know that you need to take a stand with the other departments and ensure that you're putting in dedicated effort into this part of your life as well. I hope you enjoyed this framework. Do like, share and subscribe. This is your Board of Advisors signing off. I'll see you in the next one.